Draw your last pathetic card so I can end this, Yugi.
My grandpa's deck has no pathetic cards, Kaiba.
Welcome, Stooky Bill, Stooky Sue, and the Stooky Babbies, to episode 497 of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 12th of December 2023, and featuring The Giggle, written by Russell T. Davies, and starring David Tennant as the Doctor, and Catherine Tate as Donna Noble. I am Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and I'm really starting to wish I had 3 screens for streaming. With me are color commentator Alex Fireheart.
I would do the Woody Woodpecker laugh, but I can't, so.
And technical director Mad Matt Winchell.
Your foul one, Mr. Grinch.
So, as you may have heard, as I was starting the intro, I've uploaded some stuff to Discord soundboard, which allows us to react a little more dynamically to news and such, and hopefully will be useful.
Alrighty.
But everyone that's on our call should have access to it.
I heard it, at least. I'm not sure how you're supposed to access it, but I heard it.
Right where you hang up, right beneath that, there's a picture of like a music note. It says open soundboard. When you click on it, you can pick from there.
Oh. See, it doesn't still look like a music note. It looks like a speaker. Open soundboard. Ah. So now we can make it a thing that we just hit the TARDIS noise, and that will be your cue that it's the opening's over. Alrighty.
So we don't have issues like we did in the past where you would say okay and I didn't hear you.
Exterminate!
Oh, this is going to get abused.
I mean, I feel like a good use for the cloister bell would just be like if we're running a bit long in a certain section.
True. Other than that, my only real personal news is that I may have been exposed to COVID last week. I went to a lab party on Thursday, and on Saturday we were told that someone had tested positive, and I'm broke at the moment. I can't really afford to go out and get a COVID test, and actually even the food I ate today, because I was just tired of not having fresh meat or seasonings in the house, I'm just praying that it doesn't go to my bank account before my paycheck does. But yeah, so I have been super sleepy, and I'm hoping that that's just my body fighting off an infection and not, and therefore I won't have any symptoms. Right.
My only suggestion is that I know of my family, my father was using B12 when the rest of us got COVID, and he barely felt it for about a week. And
Gotcha.
My multivitamin that I've been drinking now for over a year also has B12. So if nothing else, I would suggest that. Not guaranteed to help, but it might do something for you.
Unfortunately, I've been really slow on, for the past couple months, I've been getting reminders to go get the latest booster shot, and I just haven't because I've been busy. And I probably should have done that.
Yeah.
I suppose, given
That's
your
it on
situation,
mine,
yeah.
then.
Well, I'm sure me and Alex both have all kinds of fun work talk. I'll keep mine as brief as possible.
I'll keep an eye on how long it goes.
I had the phone interview today, they wanted me to come in right away tomorrow. I'm like, I'm working in the afternoon, actually. And they're like, okay, how about late afternoon Thursday? That I can do.
Okay.
Does this mean you already put in notice, or is somebody from your job going to find this on YouTube and say, "Oh shit, Matt is"?
I don't know
doing
that anyone at my
interviews."
current job even gives a damn about me doing online content, to be fair. So, shrug. The most I get to interact with most of them is like, hello, and then getting on with work. But yeah, the possible I'm gonna be doing an in-person interview on Thursday, and we'll see from there. I might be done at the current job by the end of the month. We'll see. And actually, they not only suggested the job I applied for, but there's also another job in the general store area. But that's for me to find out as we talk about it in a couple days. Trying to think if there's anything else. I know all my packages came in.
This is a good one.
Oh yeah, I hope it's. Oh, they both sound like they're gonna be good jobs too. It's also already gonna make more money per hour than my current one. Yeah.
Which is good as long as they don't as long as there's not something about it that drives you to quit 3 weeks in.
Yeah, right. Knock on wood. But other than that, I think all the packages are in. My last one was a Ghostbusters Ugly Christmas sweater. Yeah, I think that's about it at the moment. Other than that, and going out to see Godzilla on my own, which I drove myself. Vroom vroom. Also, I don't know why some gas pumps just tape my card, so I have to go in and prepay. F it. And that's about it for me this week.
Not much really to say for me aside from just the work stuff. They finally got around to interviewing me for the full-time shifts on Monday. I'm not sure how well it went. I think their main potential hang-up was the shoulder injury that I had earlier this year, but I made it pretty clear that it wouldn't really be a problem because I wouldn't be there all day, so I wouldn't have to do bin runs all my entire shift, which is the problem that brought it on in the first place. Is the other people up there were basically just getting me to do all the damn bin runs, and that eventually catches up. I made it quite clear. It's like, I could do that for 4 hours straight when I was in my 20s. I'm 33 now. I can't do that.
There's this thing called carpal tunnel.
Yeah. I can't, and because I wouldn't be there full time, I wouldn't be having to do the bin runs up in the food court all the time, so therefore it would likely not be an issue.
It would very likely not be an issue, and you'll have more things going on in the day that you can easily stretch and not have to make those muscles as weary and burnt out.
Yeah.
Simple as.
And because I didn't bring it up, but the other benefit of working full time is I would accrue leave quicker. So if I felt like my body was starting to give a little, I would probably just intentionally put in for 2 weeks off or something, or even just a week, to give myself some time to rest more than anything, even if I didn't go anywhere.
Heck, maybe not even a full week, just a few days, just to make sure that you relax long enough to alleviate any issues.
Yeah, last year it was that bad that, and also I'd come back from work off. Oh no, wait, no, that was this year. Last year I took all of March off because my shoulders just felt absolutely shattered. And at that point I ended up just feeling like I needed a mental health break as well, so I just took a full month off. Yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, I'm getting fed up, and I made it pretty clear to them, if I don't get this, it's likely that when I hit my long service leave, because I've been there for almost 10 years. When that comes up, there's a chance that if I don't have full time by then, see ya. Like, I'm just gonna
it's
be
a
gone.
good thing that you work in Australia. I mean, there are so many reasons why it's a good thing you work in Australia and not the U.S. Because I feel like in 2/3 of the states of the U.S., that would be enough reason for them to say, "Okay, you're fired."
Yeah. I mean,
except that they're kind of desperate to keep people around, to be honest, around here these days.
I mean, they're desperate to keep people where I work.
It's more of an I guess you would say a seller's market than it used to be, because a large portion of the workforce, kind of died over the past 5 years.
Right.
But in terms of the general condition.
I mean, that and worker protections are just
a good portion of them died over the last 3.
I'm just rounding. Yeah. I'm just rounding.
Yeah, I mean, like, and also worker protections are better here because, like, there are some people that they probably
that's the part I most meant.
Yeah, because, like, there are some people that work that they probably want to get rid of, but they don't have a justifiable legal reason to do so they just kind of have to hold out until the people leave.
Yeah, that's what I meant, because in a lot of places here, like, I'm sure if they were to say, "Oh, okay, if you're planning on leaving anyway, we're just going to fire you," that would probably not fly in an Australian
I mean,
district. Like, you could probably sue, sue or whatever you would need to do.
Right. They did catch wind of the fact, which means that my supervisor did pass that along, that I was intending to move south at some point. But I also made that clear because, like, one of them, they almost seems like they were under the impression that I would be gone in the next couple of months. And I had to be like, no, I'm flat broke. No way would I be able to afford to move. That's part of why I want the full-time work, is so that I can save up money to eventually move down in like a year or 2. But yeah, aside from that,
switching a job is going to be up to them at this point.
Yeah. But yeah, aside from that, there's also the fact that thankfully it's further north, but it's still kind of like, that there's a cyclone north of my hometown by a good amount of hours, but we're likely gonna feel some of it. We're just not in like that.
Patterns,
yeah, we're just not in the danger zone. It's oddly calm though, which has me kind of almost more worried because I'm like,
how hard is it going to slap back?
Yeah, especially because like 2 days ago now, I think. 2 days ago, I get home from I'm just getting home from work and my dad gets called up and it's like, hey, part of the fence fell over. So we had to get that back up and put some, I forget what they're bloody called, but like some pikes or whatever in the ground.
Awesome. Stake them in.
Points stakes along the ground to along the fence so it didn't, because it fell into our yard. I thought it would have been knocked into the next yard, but it turned out that they had things already in place so it wouldn't fall into the yard. So we just did that on our side of the fence, just so it can stay upright until my dad has a chance to get that part of the fence replaced. Right. Yeah, aside from gaming, that's pretty much it.
All right. So on tonight's show, we've got birthdays and news. Less news than anticipated. We've got some geek talk from all 3 of us, actually. Then we've got some elements of Doctor Who to discuss. Our episode summary with a very brief historical fact check. And our episode review, final thoughts, and ratings. To Alex, starting with the birthdays.
Yep. So on the 6th of December, to start with, we have Noel Clarke, who played Mickey Smith from 05 to 010 and will likely never come back. Turned 48. On the 7th, we have Wendy Padbury, who played Zoe Harriet from 1968 to 69. Turned 76. On the 8th, we have Jenny Linden, who played Barbara in the Peter Cushing movies. Turned 84. On the 9th of December, we have Eric Sayward, who is a script editor and a writer for Doctor Who from 81 to 86. Turned 79, which is wild to me because for some reason I always thought he was older than that. But anyway. Also on the 9th, we have Waris Hussein, who was the director for An Unearthly Child, and Marco Polo, turned 85. On the 10th, we have Anthony Coburn, who is the writer of An Unearthly Child, would have been 96, but died in 77 at the age of 49. On the 11th, we have Reg Whitehead, or Whitehead, depending. Who was a recurring 60s Cyberman and Yeti actor, would have been 91, but died in 2016 at 83. Also on the 11th, we have Richard Matthews, who played Rassilon in The Five Doctors. Would have been 109, but died in 92 at the age of 77. And finally, on the 12th, we have Sarah Sutton, who played Nyssa from 81 to 83 and has done so on Big Finish since. Turned 62. So happy birthday to Noel, Wendy, Jenny, Eric, Waris, Anthony, Reg, Richard, and Sarah.
All right, we move from there to our episode news, and to start off with, we have reviews of the Giggle. And I haven't had the chance to really go through these and see if there's anything that really stands out. I had not realized watching the episode, just because it's mentioned in the first review, it says social media satire, a killing spree to the Spice Girls, and a doctor literally coming apart at the seams. This was genuinely brilliant and thrillingly unpredictable TV. I hadn't realized that was Spice Girls because that does, unless they've come out with new songs, that does not sound like a 90s song.
Spice up your life.
Spice Up Your Life. Yeah, that was Spice Up Your Life. It was their It
was like their first big hit, like their first album at least.
Well, first big hit in the US, probably. I think that was off their second album.
Was it their second album? I was pretty sure that was their first one. Maybe we only got them after the second album came out already.
Maybe.
Because they are UK based.
It feels a lot more recent than any Spice Girls song that I actually knew.
Bill, I definitely knew that song.
Yeah, it was their second album. The first one was called Spice. The second album was Spice World.
I mean, to be fair, you're a few years older than me, so you probably have a better memory of that time period than I do.
Also, how old were your siblings? How old were your siblings at the time?
My sister was 5, and she was the Spice Girls fan.
I'm just saying you should have known.
At the time, I was just like, "Oh, all pop music must suck because the Spice Girls are annoying."
Well, I can see being annoyed when it was getting played to death, but thankfully it wasn't played completely to death, around here at least. Middle of nowhere town kind of helps with that. Shelters you from the blast.
Yeah, but
pretty sure.
When I think Spice Girls in my head, the one song that really comes to mind is "Wannabe," because that's the one that I heard played to death.
Wannabe.
That might have been off the first album.
Not sure.
Yeah, that
was
was
off the top of my head.
That "If You Want to Be My Lover, You Got to Get With My Friends."
Okay, yeah, that one was also a hit. Yeah.
Let's see. Because I figured, given this episode, that the reviews would have would be a little controversial, a little split. However, looking at the news on Doctor Who, the reviews on that Doctor Who news selected, they all just seem to be praise for the actors, praise for the episode, and so forth.
Which, to be fair, could have been intentional.
Yeah, let's be fair on that. That could be intentional. Whether Doctor Who news was kind of could only find them, or if the new people who were putting out the reviews publicly very early on were all very positive for whatever reason.
True.
You never know.
Although
More
I guess
likely the later than Doctor Who news being bought out, but you never know.
Yeah. Because of
Anything
course,
about this stand out to any of you?
The one joke I have is that they did avoid whatever opinion the Mirror had, who were usually like, I don't get it. Or
that's true.
Usually
that's
the one
true.
negative.
Yeah,
true, the Mirror's
you are right
not
about
in here.
that.
Which, for all I know, they were, because I feel like it was always kind of a running gag that it would always be noticeable when they did seemingly like something, because most of the reviews we seem to talk about that they made were all like, I don't get it. Or like, what's this about? Like, they'd always be like either negative or unsure.
Right.
So the odd time there was a positive one, it always stood out, because it was like, oh, hey, they actually understood the episode.
I actually get this one.
Right.
Okay.
One that it is kind of stands out because of the focus. Den of Geek mentioned the bursts of fury, the moments of melancholia, the hugging, the brainy specs. If this really is the last time Tennant ever dons the skinny suit, I would bet you money it's not. These three specials might be the most triumphant final appearance of any Doctor to date.
I have qualms with that.
Okay.
We'll get into this later.
I guess I'll throw it in here now because I don't. Yeah, we haven't got it there, so it must have happened like right before we or it just kind of went under the radar. Apparently, RTD is saying that there are currently no plans to bring Tennant back.
Currently, big air quotes there.
Well, yeah, like I will believe it when I see it, but given
Tennant has another.
We'll get to it later, but yeah,
of calling up and asking if he can show up in new specials.
Right.
Although, speaking of which, I saw some muttering about this. I guess Matt Smith made a comment about like he about not getting invited to the special and that maybe he would have or something. I don't know what he'd said. But I saw fans basically saying like it was disrespectful that Matt Smith wasn't in the 60th or anything. And I'm like, no, like we didn't need yes, maybe it would have been nice to have like the new 3 Doctors or the new 5 Doctors or something. Actually, no, if it was 3 Doctors, he would not have been one of them. It might have been nice to have the new 5 Doctors or something, but by no means was it necessary, and by no means was that like he wasn't a glaring omission in any of these 3 stories. It's not like they were like, oh yeah, we also got back Peter Capaldi and Jodie Whittaker and left a voicemail that Christopher Eccleston didn't listen to. No, that's not what happened.
No, yeah.
All of these were
a whole bunch of doctors didn't show up that were all new Who doctors. Don't even at me about Matt.
All of these were single Doctor stories.
Meanwhile, Matt Smith is doing just fine on his current Game of Thrones series. Leave the poor man alone. He's doing quite well for himself right now. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like as
being a badass.
Anyway, considering that he was in a multi-Doctor story in the 50th, he's the last one who's actually due to, okay, Tennant was the last one who was due to return, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But Otherwise, he's the next to last one to be due to return.
Yeah, like
give Eccleston some
especially-
time, but at the same time, I think there's some bad blood between him and RTD, so I don't think that's happening anytime
I
soon.
think so. Or at the very, I mean, RTD
Unless that
seems to
hatchet's
have,
been buried, I don't know.
RTD seems to have hired much of his production crew at Bad Wolf. So if the bad blood was not between him and Russell, it's probably still between him and somebody on the production.
Possibly, yeah.
But I don't think that that's going to happen while Bad Wolf is running.
Does not seem likely to me. Again, unless that hatchet has somehow been buried and we just aren't aware of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because his hatchet between himself and Doctor Who General has been buried a while now. He's been showing up to conventions and everything.
Yeah.
He loves it. And he's also done audios.
That was in part, of course, because the people he had the issues with were no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But again, we don't know who it exactly is. He's a classy enough guy not to just label names, and if he does feel it's time to confront those issues, he'll do it himself in person, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
He's that kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
All right, so moving from the reviews to the ratings, the Giggle had total ratings of 4.62 million viewers in the UK, which accounted for 32.3% of the viewing audience. We didn't get the normal breakdown update that we normally get, which is normally listed on DoctorWhoNews.net. So we weren't able to be like, oh, what was it behind and so forth.
Yeah,
that's left us scratching our heads
right
a bit.
now.
That's a little unusual.
And similarly, for the same reason, we don't have international figures, or I guess Disney Plus figures, because it's normally reported in the same way. I'm sure there are sources, but I'm not sure where to find them. And we have other things going on, so we couldn't spend all day looking for news like a professional journalist. Which I would have done 15 years ago, let's be honest. The appreciation index for the Giggle was 85, which is the highest of any story since Peter Capaldi's first series. Moving on to news for future episodes, we have the 15th Doctor's sonic screwdriver, and I believe there was some roasting planned.
I mean, it really is. It's the Sonic TV remote. It's either that or it's the Sonic computer mouse. Like the amount.
Yeah, I was thinking
the Sonic
mouse.
hand mirror. Like, come on, what the hell is this thing? Like, I'll put it this way: if they purely refer to it as a Sonic and not a Sonic screwdriver, whatever problems I have with it will go out the window. Probably. It still looks a bit silly and over, like
a little over designed. Yeah.
Yeah, like. I remember people saying, and I even think I saw someone say that they used to think Capaldi's like TARDIS themed one was a bit over the top. Yeah, no, this is more over the top.
Oh lordy, yeah. Like I'm sorry, I'm seeing some of these shots, and all of a sudden I heard the professor's voice from Futurama in the back of my brain. Good news, everyone! Now it's a suppository.
Yeah, I feel like they're designing these now, at least in part, based on like how many toys they can sell.
How many gimmicks can we sell the kids on?
Yeah,
I don't know why it has a key ring, because the Doctor doesn't use a keychain. So why does it have a key ring in that final shot?
Oh.
I'm kind of joking. It's probably not intended for keys, but it definitely looks like
doesn't
a
help.
key ring.
There's a
bottle
video.
Opener, if not a key ring.
Yeah, there's like a video on the official YouTube channel where
actually it looks like it might be a magnifying glass or something, but then some of these buttons on here look like they're like a late 2000 or like a mid 2000s portable CD player. What is this thing? An MP3 player?
You know what it looks like? It looks like a toy that you buy and every button has a different saying recorded. So you press 1, and it's
Oh
like whatever the
my.
15th Doctor's version of Alon-Z is. You press another button, and he's like, "No, get to the TARDIS," or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I
you're
feel like
saying
from
it's
what
his portable soundboard?
From what I recall, because I did watch the video where he explains the like bits and pieces of it. I think the thing at the top is supposed to be like from what he explained anyway, from what I remember, was something about it was explicitly something that would allow him to connect with other bits of technology.
Okay.
But it's like, but why does it look
So
like
it's like
that?
so it's a USB that doesn't look
Yeah.
like a USB. Okay.
Yeah, like I think he even compares it to a USB, but like a USB, but not really, or something like that. But yeah, it's
Now,
Several
sorry, you can
issues.
finish if you're... But I guess there's a Rwandan proverb there, which it doesn't really fit in universe in the same way. But I think like Shooty probably wanted that specifically, and I mean, that's customizing it for the actor playing the Doctor. I think that's not a bad idea given how how close to the self the role of the Doctor tends to be.
yeah.
I mean that enough makes it already more elaborate than any other sonic screwdriver because none of them even were big enough to have text on them, and this has a whole sentence,
Has a whole phrase on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess at the very least, it is a very doctory phrase because I forget I forget the exact phrase because he says what it is.
The
but
sharpness of the tongue
in the
defeats
article,
the sharpness of the warrior.
Yes,
that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I have never looked up any Rwandan pronunciation, and I know I'd fuck it up if I tried to do it.
Yeah, they do the Rwandan words there too, and I'm like, oh hell no.
Right. I would try it if not for the fact that I don't even know how Rwanda pronounces accents and glottal marks and such. So.
Yeah, there's a lot umlauts there, and I'm like, oh hell no.
Umlauts, that's the word I was looking for. Always forget the word umlaut.
But yeah, like maybe it'll grow on me over time. And again, like I feel like some of the issues I have, I would immediately forgive if they only refer to it as a sonic and not a sonic screwdriver. Because like you can't look at that and tell me I'm supposed to call that a screwdriver.
The incredible edible sonic egg.
I mean, honestly, at that size, it might as well have a touchscreen.
Well, yeah, I think I even joked to someone like they might as well have given him a smartphone at this point.
Yeah. Also, in the last photo, it almost looks like he's about to throw it like a... I mean, well, not really, but you can kind of imagine it like as if he's about to throw it like a shuriken. And
I mean, that angle is... Yeah, like that angle is actually where the sonic hand mirror joke came from, because it almost kind of looks like a hand mirror in that last
hooberang.
And then once I watched the 1-minute video, including the article, I realized like the shape is kind of upside down for the computer mouse comparison, so it does fit like the hand mirror thing a little better.
I don't know. It's really wonky right now. We'll see, I guess.
Right. Yeah, we'll have to see it in action, but this it seems like a little much.
Yeah. And generally a bit bulky.
All right. Moving on to more news about the Christmas special / the companion Ruby Sunday. We have news according to Doctor Who magazine that Ruby Sunday is a musician in a band. Let's see. She's a keyboardist. So I would not be surprised if it's some sort of electronica band or something.
Or
I'm sure there's many different genres that use keyboards, but
otherwise, new wave is a very popular thing online these days.
I don't even know what new wave is.
Think think well, also some people just call it synth, but think like 80s new wave.
Yeah, like
Okay.
Don't You Want Me by the Human League and stuff like that.
I guess I was kind of
And
combining
Blondie.
like any sort of synth into like the. It's not really electronica, but I guess in my head I was kind of lumping them in together.
Yeah.
There's different versions of electric music these days. The usual dance stuff, the semi-retro stuff, which has been taking off now for like 5 years. I was there when it was really rough, and they didn't even know how to put lyrics to this stuff. It took them a while. Some of them are really good at it, though.
So it looks like there will be a big music number with either the band or a different band with goblins, which seems like is the song that they that we'll be talking about in like 4 news articles from now. So foreshadowing. Moving on from that, we have classic episode news, and I think this is one of the Mirror's rumors, if I remember right. But the BBC have announced that the missing episodes of the Celestial Toymaker will be animated and released on Blu-ray. So let's.
From what I recall, in a very crappy-looking 3D style.
To be fair, sometimes 3D can look really rough and still. It really depends on what they're doing with it.
It doesn't look as bad as what was the 10th Doctor one?
Either of them.
Like one of them was just like 2D Flash and one was 3D.
Fair.
The one with Area 51 was 3D.
Yeah.
And it looked like PS1 cutscenes.
Yeah.
Or more like PS1 era CD-ROM cutscenes, to be honest.
Like, and this looks better than like the one episode they had to animate for the Web of Fear, but it still just looks
a bit stilted and weird. Yeah.
Like
again,
I really
it could
wish
just be the stills, but it could still be just as bad in the actual video to actually see it.
So it look. Well, there is a teaser with the animation. Yeah. So it looks like they're going to have both color and black and white versions. So there'll be the animation, there'll be the reconstruction, probably with either telesnaps or probably like the when they say reconstruction, I imagine it's the kind where like they reanimate the telesnaps kind of thing. But it's hard to tell without looking at it. And then they say newly restored of the one surviving episode. So I guess just like remastered or whatever.
Essentially a remastering, cleaning up of the one episode they can get back.
So I guess basically this is the definitive release of the Celestial Toymaker. All of the versions and like the like the Sylvester McCoy introduction from the previous release, as well as the new stuff.
Yeah.
I will say in the little teaser that the animation does look a little bit better, if nothing else for the fact that it seems to actually be moving. I remember a lot of our issues in some of the older stuff that we watched in 3D that it looked really stilted and stiff. It still looks like a stilted art style, but at least they're actually like vibrant in it.
Like I just wish that they had stuck with the team that did the not Web of Fear, the Macroterra, because that is the best looking one so far.
Oh yeah, they had that team for a while and they did a really good job. I don't know why they let them go. Maybe they cost too much. I don't know. Or wasn't that maybe the Australian team too? So maybe there was just issues trying to get a hold of them. I don't know.
I don't know. It's either
they
that
got
or
other
they
work.
just I think
it's
it's
either
either that
bought out.
or...
Yeah, possibility too.
I think it's that or they just eventually finally decided, well, fuck going between all of these independent, like all these third parties, we'll just do it ourselves.
That's also a possibility of the BBC, sadly.
But yeah, this move to 3D I do not like, because 2D fits more by virtue of the fact that it fits the era. Like, if you're gonna make
Yeah.
it look like, and like, if it's cheap 2D animation, then yeah, it was the friggin' 60s. Of course, it would be cheap 2D animation.
I mean,
Like,
I kind of would even prefer like the like ugly rotoscoped ones where it's basically like they try like the 10th planet where it's just like as super faithful to the original, just because when it's like that you could watch, like if you really wanted to, you could watch the 3 animated episodes and the 1 surviving episode, and there wouldn't be a huge visual difference between them.
right.
Whereas
Yeah,
this, it would be super weird to watch 3 animated episodes, and then
yeah.
actually, I just realized if they say episode 1 through 4 in color, I guess. Oh no, it's episode 1 through 4 animation color. So never mind. I don't think they colored the surviving episode.
Episodes 1 through 3 reconstruction. Episode 4 original episode.
Yeah. I was looking where it says color, but that's animation color.
Right.
So
this too is
episode,
animation 1 through 4 color. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although it wouldn't honestly shock me, given that they colored some stills for the episode.
Yeah, they colored a
covering
few
today.
frames.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair,
But-
if they happen to have a color camera on set, they would actually have stills in color too. Matter of fact, I
Right.
believe there are actually a few color stills from this episode.
Now,
Just
I
not a
will
lot of
say,
them.
and this is probably not what they would have done in the 60s if they had the chance to air this in color. But thankfully, neither the animation here nor the stills we saw in the Giggle have our ambiguously racist main antagonist in yellowface.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Thankfully.
I feel like they would have intended it to be that way.
Right. I mean, it was interesting seeing.
I say
shots of Michael
ambiguously
Goff
racist,
again.
but then I guess we're not
never-
to the summary yet, but
Yeah.
he seems to be explicitly racist in a different way.
Oh yeah, I mean, being the celestial Toymaker when that was used to be a derogatory term for Chinese people, done up like a Mandarin, all this, etc. Like, a
Right,
lot
no,
of
yeah, that's what I mean about that's what I
Yeah.
was saying about the intent in the 60s.
right, yeah.
But then I was connecting that to his first scene in the Giggle, which I shouldn't be yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems to have a different intent to play the complete reverse around in this new one. But anyways,
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving from there to that's the one that's not on the soundboard because it's not Doctor Who. Merchandising.
you get merchandising button.
But we have some new Doctor Who designs from Lavarzi. These are winter hats and scarves. And there's apparently also a sweater. But what I really like about these is that for people who don't recognize the Doctor Who reference, these just look like nice winter gear. But they also have the Doctor Who references that are kind of unobtrusively added. Although I guess if you were to wear the Weeping Angel design, it says sweater, scarf, and hat.
Oh, yeah, they don't show an image of
There's
the
just not
sweater.
a photo of the sweater. Yeah. I imagine if I wore the Weeping Angel design, people would be like, I didn't think you were religious, and I'd be like, oh no, it's Doctor Who. But other than that, like, the Doctor Who references are kind of unobtrusive. If you click the link to Lavarzi, you can immediately see the sweater.
And funnily enough,
It's in the banner.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
There we go. Oh wow, yeah, that's a little more clear on the on the sweater.
Not to mention, I'm noticing they also sell Tom Baker scarves
I just saw it too.
Yeah.
of varying
Yeah,
lengths.
I think we might have covered that like years in the past. But yeah, my personal take is that this is just some very serviceable winter gear that has the extra. I mean, I don't know what the quality is. I don't know what their if their stuff is like good quality, but it looks good quality.
It looks like good quality, and I would say it better be good quality because that full length Fourth Doctor scarf is almost $100.
But like
Yeah.
you could wear this sweater to like a family Christmas party and where you're the only one who knows about Doctor Who.
That's right. They also
And,
have those
like,
fancy handbags. These are the same people that did those not too long ago. Okay.
Yeah, yes, it is. Yep. Which I kind of
And that's
wonder
Sylvester
if they pay
McCoy,
Doctor
Seventh
Who.
Doctor umbrella.
I kind of wonder if they pay Doctor Who News for advertising, because they're like the main merchandise that Doctor Who News ever talks about.
Probably.
There might be some handshake going on back there for that, yeah. Oh, they also have a Fifth Doctor sweater.
Makes you wonder if they have a Seventh Doctor one. All right,
Not that. Oh, yeah, they do. Yep, they have the sweater vest too. And I think is that a 13th Doctor scarf? Yeah.
Oh, the sweater does not come in my size.
Curses and Brad.
I'm not really surprised. Yeah. At least it goes up to double XL, which is still better than some places that will just go XL and then that's it.
Yeah, you need at least 3X or up, especially since you clowns seem to think that 3X is 2X. I do not get these places that don't know how the differences in size.
I've had places I bought a 4X from that was smaller than 2Xs that I had in other brands. Like, I have hoodies that are 2X that I still wear, and shirts that are 4X that are too small.
I can't say I've hit that with a 4X, but I can't buy anything online without having to go a size up because I can't trust them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends.
And they fit comfortably like they're a normal 3X, so it's like, why are you so small?
Well, for the shirts, for those specific shirts, it's because it's like they're like a 2X around the waist and a 4X at the shoulders.
It
and
needs
I'm like,
to be
that's
4X
not what
everywhere.
I need. Not everybody is the shape of an inverted triangle.
Yeah, like I bought a shirt off a wrestler just to support him more than anything else, and he was very clear that, like, yeah, this says 2XL, but this was made in like Taiwan or China or just like somewhere in like East Asia, Southeast Asia, so the sizing was different. So it's like, would that
I've had
probably
that
fit
too.
me? No.
I bought something that was supposed to be a 3XL, except I didn't realize it was like, it was like Chinese or Japanese sizes. And I ended up giving it to my friend who wears a small US, and it fit her perfectly. And I still see and I know it fits her well because I still sometimes see photos of her wearing that on Instagram sometimes. So it's like, I wanted it for me, but I'm glad somebody's getting use of it.
Right.
Anyway, we are off the topic of Lavarzi, so I'm going to move on. And I hinted at this earlier, but the BBC has released a Christmas single. Oh, well, this is not... I don't know if this is phrasing from the press release. They might have called it a festive single. But this is the Goblin song from the episode The Church on Ruby Road, music by Murray Gold. Murray Gold says, I don't like these goblins and you won't either, but they have agreed to donate everything from their song to BBC Children in Need. So this was part of the Children in Need fundraiser. But, you know, once it's out, they can't take it back, so that means the song is still available to listen to. I have not listened to it because I figured I'll just listen to it during the episode.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's available on BBC Sounds as of yesterday, and it'll also via Spotify, Apple Music, and Deezer, which I don't think we have here.
Also,
it so much tempts me to make a D's nuts joke.
As well, the scene that it's from is on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
On the official channel.
Whole scene, okay. Unexpected.
I think it's like sort of like what they did with the they uploaded like not like very short scenes, but yeah, it's like under 3 minutes.
Okay.
Like almost almost 2:45 minutes. So yeah. Oh, they even listed as the official lyric video.
Ah,
I'd still just rather watch the episode first and see if it's any good.
Yeah.
From there. If it particularly stands out, I'll seek it out afterwards.
All right, and our final piece of news, we have Torchwood Oracle, written by, or was released, sorry, I kind of, because it's not, Big Finish releases December 7th. They released Torchwood Oracle, written by Ash Darby, and starring, I might pronounce this wrong, Ronnie Judy and Silas Carson. And as far as I can tell,
Ronnie Judy sounds about right? Yeah.
I think Big Finish just went in and retconned that one of the people in the in that episode, the Satan Pit, was a representative of Torchwood.
It seems that way. Yeah.
I can't. It's like they're not citing a source in TARDIS of that person being a representative of Torchwood,
Right.
and other than it being related to the Torchwood archive, which is a Big Finish thing.
Yeah,
So I'm pretty sure that was basically they wanted to do audios with him, and they figured Torchwood was the easiest.
They want to do audios of these actors who are available and were willing to replace their characters, but how do we do that? We make them Torchwood of the future. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna. They're like, we're not gonna sell this as those guys from the Satan Pit. So
Yeah.
we're gonna call them Torchwood.
Yeah, because I think that's happened like the past couple of weeks. I'm noticing is that there were 3 different actors who, when we looked up what their role was, it was like, oh, they were all in the Satan Pit.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like, this will be like the
Over the
third
past
actor
several months,
in a row,
yeah.
I think. Yeah.
It's like the third or fourth one, yeah. Okie doke.
And that is the end of our news.
So, first
which
thing on the
brings
list,
us on-
Loki, season 2.
Yep.
Go, Bill.
Yes, and so funny enough, between watching Quantumania and the Doctor Who specials, Disney Plus has decided that my preferred genre is time travel stories, and I guess I'm not complaining. But the first thing I did when I saw that option was, okay, I'm going to click on Loki, which kind of reinforces the stereotype. But Loki Season 2 starts off, of course, after the end of Loki Season 1, where effectively Loki has come unstuck in time, which isn't supposed to be possible in the TVA. He's time-slipping 2 different time periods within the TVA, which is presumed it's because he was sent back in time using He Who Remains' tempad. For those who aren't aware, that is essentially Immortus, right? A version of Kang.
Yeah.
Also, kind of related to that final episode, because they stopped pruning timelines and decided maybe people should have free will, the temporal loom, which powers the TVA, is on the verge of exploding because now there's too many timelines to control it, or to contain it, I mean. So the season is 6 episodes long, and it's basically dealing with those 2 problems: Loki going in and out of time, and how to stop the loom from basically killing everyone. And throughout the process, they meet another version of Kang. If you're familiar with Victor Timely from Marvel Comics, so they meet him and try to recruit him to help fix the problem. This also includes going into a bit of Renslayer and Miss Minutes' backstories, which is kind of interesting. Kang, and also kind of going through different versions of the main characters, who how they might live in different timelines and so forth. So I'm not going to spoil how they resolve it or what they do to try and resolve it. I will say I really enjoyed this season. I mean, I think Loki Season 1 was really good as well. This, I think, is a little less of a buddy cop movie. It's a little more focused. I mean, not movie. it's less of a buddy cop show. It's a little more focused on Loki himself, because of the nature of some of the problems. There's an episode where Loki almost seems to be the Doctor because he kind of needs to time travel by himself to fix problems. Although I would say the way it ends is very decidedly not Doctor-like. So, yeah, I would say this is probably... I haven't really looked up reviews or anything, but I would expect this is one of the more well-liked things that the MCU has probably put out lately, because I think it was just solid. There may be a few things worth criticizing, although they kind of tie into the Marvel Comics history, so they didn't surprise me. But no major criticisms, definitely. I would definitely, if you enjoy the MCU, you should probably watch this. Mm.
Alrighty, so then moving on, Godzilla Minus One. So which one of us should go first?
I'll let you go first.
Alrighty, so actually I'll try to give like a very brief synopsis on how this one starts. So basically, Godzilla Minus One takes place before the original Godzilla movie, as far as I can tell. Timeline-wise, at least it certainly does, like by about 10 years. Mm. We immediately start off at the tail end of World War II. A kamikaze pilot is coming into a very rough landing strip on Odo Island, which is the original island from the first movie. And once he lands there, the engineers are like, wow, we're surprised you managed to actually land that, especially without blowing up, given the fact that you have a huge bomb on you. The pilot basically gives the excuse that he was having engine troubles and isn't sure what's going on, so he couldn't continue on with his mission. Basically, it's been figured out by at least one of the crew there that they understand he's very afraid, and honestly, most people already know the war's over, that killing himself would garner nothing. It'd be a waste. Mm-hmm. Although it's still looked upon, how shall I say it, it's still, sacrificing oneself is still looked upon honorably in Japan, even to this day, but there's also a number of reasons why it doesn't always work out that way, too, to be fair. But at the time, it was looked upon as very shameful for not finishing something like this. But the guy obviously is not going to go through with it. He sits on the beach for a little while and then starts to notice some deep-sea fish that are popping out of nowhere. He hears from one of the engineers that they believe it's due to the local myth on the island called Godzilla, some sort of unknown sea monster that comes up from the deep ocean and will occasionally come in to eat cattle. He sits out, the plane pilot just sits out there for a while until sunset, and as he's finally coming back in, that's when they hear the footsteps, and we get the first appearance of a Godzilla, much smaller than we usually see him. He's barely the height of a watchtower that's on the island, which would be like maybe 3 stories tall, maybe 4 at the most. Knocks it over and is about head height with the light, and then starts stomping around. One thing leads to another, and basically everyone but the airplane pilot and one of the engineers dies. They're the only ones that saw it, they're the only ones that survived it, and the engineer in particular is pissed as he leaves essentially a collection of photos of the now dead soldiers that were on that airfield, and the fact that every single one of them has a family photo. These were men that he's being blamed for the deaths of, essentially. And it doesn't get any better from there. And essentially, a lot of this movie focuses around the trauma of this airplane pilot who didn't kill himself, and the fact that he feels like everyone around him believes he let not only himself, but his family and his country down, essentially. Mm. And that he's trying to figure out what's wrong, because he doesn't believe what he did was wrong, but he feels like there's something missing, like he needs to find some way to finish this for himself. And it focuses very heavily on that. A woman he comes across who also has a little girl with her. And essentially a lot of the developments that build up from there, including his new coworkers, the family he's kind of slowly, unwillingly starting to build up. And finally, his chance for redemption, which once again involves Godzilla as he continues to be a presence throughout the movie. So getting away from trying to get any spoilers in there, I will say that they took some very good cues, not only from the original movie, but also I feel like they took some very good cues from Jaws.
Okay.
Less is better. Use
So
Godzilla,
basically what I
but
was
be
talking
very
about
minimal
last
with
week.
him.
Mm.
As a matter of fact, the middle action sequence of the movie very heavily is like the last chapter of Jaws, essentially. There's a lot of water action with a small boat and Godzilla chasing them. But yeah, if you want to do anything here, Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, like it's movies like this and Shin Godzilla are where I remember there being people who were pissed at the 2014 Hollywood movie and saying there's not enough Godzilla. It's like no. Your problem is that the problem isn't that there wasn't enough Godzilla. Your problem is that the humans we were stuck with, you didn't
Boring
like.
as batshit. Like watching flies fuck or watching paint dry.
Yeah, like Shin Godzilla is a lot of sitting around talking about what they're gonna do and all that, which is intentional because it's like poking fun at how bureaucratic everything is. Those kinds of decisions.
And
are
if you
in Japan
get that messaging, you're totally enthralled the entire movie for that one.
Yeah, and like this is very there's a lot of anti-government stances in this from these characters who are like
anti-war too, by the way.
Anti-war and like shots at the then current Japanese government about how they were treated and all this stuff. It's very like not something I would have expected going into a Godzilla movie.
You'd almost expect a little bit of anti-American sentiment in there too, but they're actually one of the first questions that they ask is why aren't the Americans stepping in to help us? Because they can't, because they're in the middle of the Cold War. If they did, it would be seen as an act of war.
Yeah. And yeah, it's very, a lot of dealing with PTSD and survivor's guilt. It's
a lot of survivor's guilt.
This honestly, I have not I can't be like, oh, this is the best Godzilla movie I've ever seen because I've only seen the two American ones prior to Godzilla vs. King Kong because I haven't seen the newest Godzilla King Kong
I
yet.
will say I've seen over 25 Godzilla movies, and I'm pretty sure this is one of the top 5 for sure.
We got to sit down and have a binge of Godzilla movies. Starting with 1954.
Yeah,
I have it.
It still bugs me that I did not end up watching the original Gojira when a streaming service I had that was mostly anime had it on it. Because if I'm watching that, I'm not watching the dub. I'm watching the original Gojira, not Godzilla.
Look up something on Tubi really quick. I know they have some stuff.
But yeah, like this movie is honestly absolutely worth seeing. Like, there's
How they know. Lots of Ultraman though. Oh wait.
But yeah, it's funny because in a way, Godzilla Minus One effectively takes the inspiration for Godzilla and makes it more like on the nose in a way, by virtue of the fact that it was the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings that inspired Godzilla in the first place, as far as I recall.
And
the aftermath of all of that.
Actually, the main one that
testing of bombs in the Pacific.
Yeah.
In particular, the Lucky Dragon No. 5 incident actually is what really heavily inspired it. It was new news at the time when the producer was on a business trip trying to get a Kong movie made. He got turned down, was coming back. Lucky Dragon number 5 was big news because it was basically a fishing boat got blown up and everyone died, as well as all the fish were radioactive, so none of them could be used. So a bunch of people lost money. And he was also going over the ocean on an airplane going, I wonder what's down there.
I was thinking Bikini Atoll, but then I looked it up. So yeah, I'm thinking the location, and you're thinking the name of the ship, but it's the same incident.
Yeah, off the Bikini Atoll, yeah.
And like it always is interesting that as much as people are like, keep your politics out of my fiction, this is very politically driven. Shin Godzilla was very politically driven. It's just well done. So like anyone who would be like, because I feel like there will be people
some minor politics in this, but I feel like the personal drama is still the main course of this particular movie.
Right.
And it's not even just the main drama, the personal drama of the main character. It's the personal drama of everybody around him.
Yeah. Like, again, this is very... Like, Shin Godzilla was about the fact that Japan has still not come to terms with or dealt with as a nation the aftermath of World War II. And it's very just shut up and move on. And this is very, like, just set in the waning days and then kind of jumps forward a couple of years.
Basically, yeah, it's like it takes place more or less like over like 2 to 3 years with little jump cuts here and there.
And it's very, I guarantee you, it is, if it's not the best movie I've seen this year, it definitely was when I saw it. I don't, I guess I'll put it this way. That's an easier way to go. Of the live action movies I've seen this year, which is most of what I've seen this year, I would probably say this is the best movie I've seen all year.
I do believe from what I'm seeing here, by the way, Tubi does actually have the original Godzilla in Japanese with subtitles.
Nice.
I
saw that they had the dub. I didn't realize they had both.
Yeah, Godzilla in quote and little side brackets Gojira. So it's the original Japanese version.
Nice.
But I think that's all I've got for that.
But yeah, just overall, honestly, even without Godzilla, the movie could have been like a historical fiction kind of a deal, and that could have been like an Oscar runner on its own. But the fact that they went, nah, we also need to have Godzilla not only be the interpretation of the atom bomb, but now he's also the interpretation of survivors' guilt and war trauma.
Yeah.
And these people are directly affected by the things that he does, and they are directly involved in getting rid of him. By the end. It's honestly probably one of the best written ones they've had in a very long time. And I agree. I haven't seen Shin. I've heard lots of good things about Shin. I just haven't had the time. And as soon as I heard about this movie, and I heard that it's going to be a very limited run, as soon as I realized, even if my friends aren't going to be able to be involved, which sadly Mike and Fred were not in my run out to go see it, I'm like, I'm not missing out a second time. This is not going to be a Shin number 2. This is going to be me getting to see this dang movie before I have to wait like 5 years for a decent DVD copy.
Well, I mean, with how the turnaround's been lately, they might.
It'll come out eventually, but it's going to still be a while. And by the time I get it, it's going to be like going to sit on the pile of to be watched movies, half buried. And wow, Tubi does have a lot of Godzilla stuff.
Anyway, moving on from that, I also saw on Sunday the newest Studio Ghibli movie, The Boy and the Heron, which, funnily enough, also takes place during World War II, which was very,
there seems to be a theme here in Japan lately.
Yeah. I mean, I will say by comparison, this barely has anything to do with the war. It's just kind of a set piece and an excuse for them to be out in the countryside
Mm.
because they're getting away from Tokyo. And like the dad is a weapons manufacturer of some description, or at least the very least like working to build stuff for the cause. Because there's like one bit where he's showing like, I forget what the actual thing is called, but like the thing that goes over the cockpit. He's like, he shows off a bunch of those. But yeah, it's like it's set during that time period, and this the main protagonist has I guess the titular boy has lost his mother in a fire years prior, and it's kind of, I didn't realize it first, but effectively his dad years after the fact seems to be marrying seems to be, unless the subtitles get this wrong or it was like a lost in translation thing, seems to be marrying his wife's sister. So now the kid's aunt will become his mother, which was a bit, huh? Okay. But yeah, and it's like him as like a 10-year-old maybe, if that, trying to like not being able to cope with that because he's still like, funnily enough, even though it's not war related, he does kind of have PTSD because he saw the fire that consumed the hospital that killed his mother. So, but because he's a kid, I think like there's like an element of, oh, is she actually dead? You know, they never found a body, etc. But you know, and it goes off in a fantastical thing when the Heron comes into play. And it goes some wild places that I was like, okay, with the war setting and everything, I didn't think it would go in this direction, but okay. Kind of, let's see. I guess of the Ghibli movies that I have actually seen, which is not all of them, I would say that this most feels like Spirited Away to me, in a way. Like a larger scale, because Spirited Away is mostly set in a bathhouse, whereas this has them going like essentially exploring like this alternate dimension, where like a bunch of stuff works differently, and you know, there's this like army of fascist parakeets and shit, and it's like, you know, it goes some weird places, and I'm just going with it, and I'm like, you know, I'm into it, but it's also like not what I mean, I wasn't really expecting anything because I didn't watch the trailer, but it was very like, just the more stuff happened, the more I'm like, this is really fun and stuff, but also what the fuck is happening? But yeah, it's a really damn good movie. Like if you can't see it in cinemas, I would say just like give it a shot whenever it comes out. Probably on Crunchyroll, because they seem to be the ones that handled the dub this time, which was shocking because Disney usually do Ghibli movies. But yeah, I actually saw it in the original Japanese as well because I had the opportunity, so I did. But yeah, definitely worth checking out if you get the chance. I think that's all I've got without tangenting.
You're given the gong.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so I guess on to the main event, and I have to do the shortening. Bill? Bill?
Oh, apparently my mic was muted even though I was talking.
Uh-huh.
But yes, ready for a countdown?
Yep.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, so the story starts off of a man coming into a toy store hosted by a man with a very thick and unusual German accent. The man's here just to buy the dummy out of a family of dummies and wants to take it over to an inventor. The inventor is trying to make the first ever television and produces an image finally. However, the reason they're using a dummy is because the lights are so bright and powerful that it would probably hurt a person, and literally as they're filming, the dummy is starting to light on fire. They were hoping to hopefully find some way to maybe get some motion out of the thing where the jaw of it just so happens to click open, and we hear a laugh, although we're not sure where the laugh comes from. Straightforward, right back into the present. The Doctor, Donna, and Wilf are trying to find a way to get the family, Wilf and Donna, into protection, and the Doctor is trying to figure out what the heck exactly is going on, as everyone just seems to be running around, assuming they're right about everything, and then just racing off to basically shout at other people and cause more havoc. In the middle of this, he suddenly dances with a man in a fancy suit, but is soon parted and then picked up by Torchwood, which gets Donna and her family to safety. It is upon going back to Torchwood that they finally figure out what that there's some sort of weird signal that's apparently coming out of literally any device with a monitor on it. Somehow the dummy and its laugh have imprinted itself on everything, and that a recent signal coming from a new satellite, it might be part of the reason why the signal has been spreading even harder, causing all the panic. But as they're figuring this out, the Doctor also figures out when the original recording was made and goes back in time to find out what's going on. To which they find the exact same toy store, and they find the exact same man with a very strange accent that quickly starts to drop it as he and the Doctor talk. And the Doctor starts to figure out that this is, in fact, the Toymaker once again, many, many, many years after their last head-to-head confrontation. And the Toymaker wants to play a new game. To which the Doctor originally starts to give chase, but tells Donna to go back. But by the time he can try and stop her and send her back, the doors are closed and they're already trapped in the Toymaker's paradox of a universe. They slip from door to door, and by accident happen to get separated. To which they then end up in different rooms. The Doctor has a vision of one of the men who bought the dummy being turned into a dummy and then chasing after the Doctor. Donna finds the dummy's family, gives the mother what for after ripping the creepy babies off of her, and then finally gets out to the main room when she bumps into the Doctor, and they have another confrontation with the Toymaker. The Doctor loses, but then tells the Toymaker, but we're only just splitting even now. Now it's best 2 out of 3. To which the Toymaker, with both chagrin and glee, decides, oh, certainly, but I'll choose the place. 2023 now hurry along, and starts to collapse the universe around them. They race out of there, get back to modern time, and start to try and figure out what the next plan is. They manage to shut down the satellite by blasting it, and as they're figuring all this out, the Toymaker suddenly appears, attacks several guards, which turn them basically into toys, then basically instant kills them. Dances with several other members, and then tosses them, leaving them almost injured. And then heads back out to the platform where the weapon was. When asked where the guards are, he said, oh, I believe they're still falling, before we hear crashing and panic below. The Toymaker then wants to start using the weapon to attack other people, and despite the Doctor trying to suggest to him other means to use his abilities and to spread more happiness rather than terror universe-wide, just endless series of games for him to play and be entertained with, he instead decides that he'd rather just focus on Earth. Just endless amounts of entertainment, fun, and horrific games to play. To which the laser is then shot at the Doctor. This Doctor suddenly splits into 2 Doctors, and the two doctors want their final game, which is a game of ball. Don't drop the ball, otherwise you lose. After a series of flings, they finally manage to beat the Toymaker at the ball game, to which he's folded up and put in his little pocket universe box, and they go bury it somewhere deep in the vaults. To which then the doctors decide to move the TARDIS, and they're trying to figure out what else to do, but the other doctor, the new doctor, decides, wait, I haven't gotten my wish yet, because the original doctor's wish was to get the Toymaker out of the universe. The other doctor splits his TARDIS in two and finally allows the 10th Doctor to stay on Earth and just finally rest for a change. And that allows the now more refreshed future Doctor to continue his split-off life and continue on with his current new TARDIS, which also has jukebox, and takes off into who knows where. The end.
All right. I know I hit this about a second before you started talking, but I have 5:47 and a half.
I got about 5:48. So we're pretty close.
So I like how you say the 10th Doctor. I noticed the captions in the episode also said 10th Doctor instead of 14.
It doesn't matter what the intent is. The matter is his face. He's the 10th Doctor for any other intents and purpose.
Also, and this is me wondering, for the sake of whether I have worse hearing problems than I thought. Did we actually hear the shattered glass and Panic on the Street when those staff members fell to the ground? Because
I did.
I heard nothing.
I did. Like a second later, all of a sudden you hear this smashing, and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, like
I only knew that glass had shattered because of the captions.
I think
like we actually hear it, and you see the guards like lean over to look down.
I did not hear it the first time, but the second time with the captions on, I did listen out to notice, and yeah, you can hear it. It's very faint, but to be fair, they are very high up.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't be especially loud.
I heard the smashing, I heard the panic. I'm like, oh, fuck. And I only watched this episode once.
So I guess I'll chalk that up to I damaged my ears worse in my late teens, early 20s than I thought I did.
I mean,
you
to be
see,
fair,
I just crank everything to 11.
Yeah, to be fair as well, I was watching it through Disney Plus on my PS5, so I was watching it on my TV, so I had the volume turned up a decent amount.
Oh, I didn't.
So, yeah.
Except I never have it all. Like I never turn it all the way up because I don't want to disturb the neighbors.
Yeah. I didn't have.
I had it loud enough that the episode was loud
Yeah.
and clear, or should have been.
I always listen with a headset. That's probably also part of it, too.
Headset probably helps, yeah.
Yeah.
Cuts out any environmental noise.
All right. So the first thing we have is the historical fact check. So John Logie Baird did indeed create the first television broadcast. And I believe he also, he also created the first color television broadcast. I cannot find any record of his assistant, Charles Banerjee, ever existing. So it seems like they made up a brown person for the Toymaker to be racist against. Stooky Bill was used for the first television broadcast, but it wasn't because the lights were so hot. It was because the television camera was, which was 5 frames per second, by the way. Modern gamers would shit themselves. It needed more contrast than a regular human face would show. So basically, a human face would mostly just show up as a white oval. So they used the dummy, which had painted on expressions, and you could see more detail with the very limited cameras. However, it is true that the hair was burnt and the plaster was cracking from the heat by the time they were done.
So not as fast as they say in this particular episode, but it did eventually kind of happen.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the fire was kind of creative liberties.
Which isn't exactly new for Doctor Who.
Right, like that. Yeah, that's well within the range of reasonable. Whereas, yeah, where they've definitely done far worse.
Hmm.
This month, I believe, if I remember. Yes, actually, yes. No, I don't even have to say if I remember. I just remembered what the conversation was. Apparently, Baird was like he was just like a an inventor in general, although many of his inventions did not take on. So like he came up with something like he came up with a glass razor which was rust resistant, but it didn't catch on because it shattered, things like that.
Yeah. I can see that one not going on.
Which, yeah,
A little hard to mass produce,
people
too.
like that. I thought people like that usually existed mostly in sci-fi because, you know, usually you're not an expert in enough fields to invent multiple things. Well, I guess you always had your Edisons and shit, so.
Yeah.
But that is, unless anybody else has something to add to that, that is our full historical fact check section.
I guess we don't know who made the dummy for them either.
I could not find any record of it, of who made it.
Yeah.
So
it
that's
might
just
be
free
out there, but it's
interpretation
not on
too.
Wikipedia. Yeah.
I feel like I saw something that said that Tookie Bill wasn't even necessarily the first image broadcast on television, but I never ended up fact checking that.
So our next question is, so do we need to have separate discussions of the 15th Doctor and Bigeneration, or do we just have one discussion?
I feel like you can separate them because the Bigeneration has a lot on its own.
Okay. If we separate them, we're definitely going over 2 hours tonight. Okay, so in that case, I guess we might as well just go in the normal pecking order, which would mean the first thing would be for Alex to talk about the Bigeneration.
It's funny because I am mostly negative on it, but if there's one positive I can give them, it's hey, New Who finally did a unique regeneration. Like, aside from technically Eccleston to Tennant, which was the first time that kind of regeneration had happened, this is the first unique regeneration
you don't count
really done.
You don't count using regeneration energy as like a fleet destroying cannon as a unique regeneration?
Not really. I mean, the unique part about that regeneration to me was the fact that it was just a quick switch when the switch actually happened. Between Smith and Capaldi, which I remember at the time thinking, ooh,
oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, that was kind of the start of, or actually, no, Tennant to Smith was kind of the start of, it's not even when the regeneration happens. It's just the energy happens and then randomly the regeneration later.
But the bioregeneration just feels very, it feels a bit too like I've seen plenty of people just being, it's like having your cake and eating it too, and it's like, yeah, but did we need to though? Like, I get narratively why, but also it just feels very Tennant is the best and therefore he needs to be kept around. It just feels very, I know this isn't what the term is usually used for, but it's very fan wanky, which I guess in my case I'm just meaning that as fan servicey. Like, it's very, everyone loves Tennant, therefore we can't permanently get rid of him this time. When it would have made so much more sense for him to finally have a regeneration where he was willing to do it, as opposed to the I don't want to go crap from last time.
I seriously considered the opening bump being I don't want to go, followed by the regeneration.
I mean, in hindsight, I probably should have, like, if there was a thing for it, it would have been funny to have like I'm seeing double 4 doctors or something. But yeah.
Oh, double vision would have been perfect actually for an intro. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, I just very mixed feelings on it. I mean, thankfully, this is going to be the only time they likely ever do it, because they kind of explain away in the episode itself that this was effectively a byproduct of the Toymaker being present. But RTD had to go and
I was about to say,
dialogue,
do
they say you did. Like,
I think you can infer that, but they basically just say this is something that was supposed to have never happened, but it's happened.
Well, like
the TARDIS bigenerating was tied to the Toymaker, but not the Doctor.
I mean, they do say, and maybe I'm just interpreting it a specific way, but after he's like, no, that's cheating, there's 2 of you now, and they're like, you did this. So
because he's the one who caused the regeneration.
Yes, because he's the one that caused the regeneration. Not that he forced the Doctor to be the 10th Doctor again.
That could be an interesting interpretation, that basically him shooting the Doctor was breaking the rules, and therefore the toy laws came in, the play laws came into effect and caused him to bigenerate or something.
Yeah, I mean, like, it makes more sense that the logic of his being kicked in to allow that to happen, and that's an explanation for why this will be like a one-time deal. But of course, RTD then
because I think you were about to go into what RTD said. Yeah,
RTD then went on to effectively say on the director's commentary for the special, and I because I don't have iPlayer, I had to find this out through their official podcast. And
they paraphrased it. They didn't use his direct words.
Yeah, according to him, the bioregeneration triggered across every regeneration that has happened thus far, retroactively, which means that
there's 4 David Tennants out there.
Yeah, and like, on the podcast, they speculate like, oh, well, that now explains every time the classic Who surviving doctors show up and are so much older, and like possibly explains the curator and that kind of stuff. And it's like, I'm mixed, because it's like, okay, yeah, it does that, but then it also poses a shit ton of questions. Like, where were all those other doctors? Like,
questions like, what is happening?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess. Like, thankfully, it's a one-time thing, and again, the main positive I actually have is just the fact that it is like a unique regeneration for a change, instead of the typical throw their arms out in a Jesus pose and regenerate. Yeah, I think that's all I've got.
All right, Matt. You've been hinting that you have some big feelings.
Oh, I think this is all bullshit. That's putting it nicely. I wanted the excuse to Tennant to even be there to be in this episode, and it's not there. There's no excuse. This really does feel like Russell T being a giant fanboy that gets to go, all my toys are in my pram now, and I'm going to keep them there. That includes keeping his Doctor.
They gave an explanation, but they leave it up
it's
to you.
It's a horseshit explanation.
The one that Donna came up with.
This entire the only good thing about this regeneration is at least Shooty got what seems to be like a generally fun Doctor so far. That's the only thing I'm giving it. Otherwise, this feels like a very hand wavy fanboy version of Russell T just going, and my Doctor lives forever, amen.
Yeah.
And I'm all about, no, fuck that, Russell. Allow him to have a good ending and be done with it already. You've had to, every single fan of this franchise has had their favorite Doctor die and we had to move on.
Yeah.
Let it go, Russell. Let the F go. All these hand-wavy, universe-breaking excuses are getting me to the point where I'm literally sitting here going, do I even want to keep watching this anymore? Because apparently Russell T doesn't even give a damn anymore. It really is getting that far with me. I'm like, you're just going to break every single rule? Why have rules at all? Why even have a TV show if you're not going to even listen to any of the rules that you've played by since the literally freaking 70s and 80s? These were rules that have been set, and they've been set for a very long time, and you're just giving really poor excuses to break them, and I'm kind of getting tired of it. At least you could have done is if you're going to bring Temp back, you give him another good reason to have a decent, proper exit way out and be done with it. Instead, you're just hand-waving more BS and just making me go, oh, F this. And that's despite all the other good things going on in this episode. Why? Why you gotta do this? There, that's me, at least abbreviated, putting out my frustrations.
So on the surface, I like the fact that they do something to address the aging doctors, other than to just say, oh, well, they're old now, get over it. But I feel like it's definitely not the right way. So as if you take it the way that Russell suggested on the podcast, in the way that actually, that there's a reason for this, that it addresses all the old doctors, that means that there are, like I said, 4 David Tennants and like 12 other doctors all existing simultaneously. Like, there was always the thing of, well, if the Doctor has infinite lives, then eventually he can solve every problem in the universe because he can be everywhere at the same time.
And throw enough of himself at it.
If he just keeps multiplying like an amoeba, that is even more true.
Yeah.
Well, it's even worse than that. It's literally Doctor Strange. Let me just use the time device again and come back. I'd like to make a bargain.
Yeah.
But yeah, the old Doctors thing has been an issue. It's actually been an issue since the 3 Doctors, because Patrick Troughton was older than he was in the 60s.
Mm-hmm. And he didn't do anything to dye his hair or anything, so yeah, it was starting to get really noticeable.
And of course, it was the most obvious by the 2 Doctors when Patrick Troughton is, he's aged another 20 years, and so has Jamie. But again, so this almost makes that worse, because it basically says, okay, we created the 3rd Doctor, now the 2nd Doctor is enslaved by the Time Lords until he finally dies.
Yeah, this makes even more issues.
Season
Lucky Russell.
6B runs forever.
Yeah.
What else was I gonna? Yeah. So I feel like, was there something else I was about to say about it? So yeah. So that's what seems to be the positive. I do feel is overshadowed by the negative. I like the idea that it's specifically tied to the Toymaker energy, which if that was the intent, I don't think it was explicit enough in the episode.
No.
I actually thought that Russell was tying it back to the Timeless Child and saying, okay, most Time Lords can't do this, but because the Doctor is, and so, even last episode, they referred to the Doctor not being from Gallifrey. If that was why, if they were saying, okay, here's another reason why the Doctor is special, which, either way, that's what they're kind of doing now. Here's another reason why the Doctor is special. That, again, it's good to have mystery about the Doctor, but the Doctor was never meant to be, the most powerful Time Lord and all of this. All 13 was supposed to be a time travel thing, not because there were 13 coexisting simultaneously. So, yeah, it answers a question, but it raises a lot more. And I do wish they were a lot more explicit about why it happened. Especially, that's right, this is the other thing I was going to mention. So, regeneration, the whole point is, oh, your body is dying. This is the last chance to save your body before it dies is to rearrange all the cells, kind of explode all of your cells simultaneously and replace them with new cells all at once.
Yeah, give it enough to just replace everything all at once.
Never was that more important than when he's been shot through the heart and you're too late by a fucking cannon strong enough to shoot things off the moon.
Yeah.
Like, there should not be enough left of the 14th Doctor's body to come back from that.
Yeah, no.
Right.
Like, that should be something where he barely regenerates, not there's enough left for 2 bodies.
Yeah, there should be at least an issue of him maybe finally getting the kickstart, but it should definitely need a kickstart to save his life. He should not be still there.
I do feel like that's kind of a natural side effect of the way modern Who, starting with RTD and continuing through Moffat and Chibnall, has basically like turned the time, regeneration energy into like a magic field, and moving it more and more from sci-fi toward fantasy.
And more and more breaking the rules or pushing those ledges, that's for sure.
I'm not suggesting that it was ever hard sci-fi. By no means was it ever hard sci-fi. But they've really leaned into the fantasy. And the end result is that you can be shot through the chest with a cannon, and because of the magic, your body actually splits in half. It would be interesting if they said, no, the Artron energy converted the energy from the cannon into matter, and that's how we got a second body or something like that. But they did not do that. That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
That's not what they said.
Or again, we're just more explicit about the fact that it was just a result of the wonkiness of the Toymaker being present.
Also not what they did, so either way, it's still...
All in all, if they had given us a why, I think that would have covered a good chunk of our issues. Not all of our issues, but a good chunk of them.
Yeah.
All right. Now we transition to talking about the 15th Doctor, and we got him for, probably 15, 20 minutes, so I don't think we'll have quite as much to say. But I think there's enough to give commentary, even though he spends the entire episode with no pants, or in the British way of saying it, in his pants. All right, so starting with Alex.
Of what we have so far, I'm liking what I'm seeing. A lot more energy. Like, I mean, he's younger than me, so I would hope that he's got more energy. But more vibrant and all that. And, like, I guess the only aspect of the bioregeneration that can tie into a positive about this is seemingly Shooty doesn't have to have the angst and baggage of every Doctor that came before him. So he will be able to be a bit more, like, happy-go-lucky and stuff. And, like, they even showed a bit of a difference to where a reaction he had that Tennant kind of was like, wait, what? Like, how can you react that way to this? And it's like, because he doesn't have the baggage. Like, all that baggage is moved over to Tennant, which, I mean, if they're trying to treat the start of Shooty's run as sort of a soft reboot, like a jumping on point, then that would make sense.
Which I think a good regeneration should pretty much always be.
Yeah. Yeah. But like as a big reset to be like, he doesn't have, he either doesn't have all or just doesn't have as much of the emotional weight.
I think there's still to be at least some emotional weight there. Like, there's still some stuff that I'm guarantee you any doctor would feel like they still need to fix a few things, especially after given some of the more recent events. But I guarantee you he's definitely got less of the emotional baggage.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see moving forward. That aside, there's not really much to say. I kind of wish he'd actually gotten his outfit in this because it was a bit awkward for him to just be in his underwear the whole time. But, I think that's all I've really got because there isn't really all that much to go on.
Okay, Matt?
For a man who was there in barely more than his PE kit, yeah, I will say he definitely seems to be very energetic with the role. He definitely seems to get some of what David Tennant used to do back in the day. And yeah, it does seem like he has a little less of the baggage, but I definitely don't want him to be completely without baggage because there's still...
Oh, yeah.
The universe is still kind of effed up a bit after some of the more recent events, and I'm hoping that at least someone who's a little less emotionally drained could possibly see through to find some fixes that the otherwise emotionally drained Doctor wouldn't be able to come to, at least not as quickly. That said, yeah, I wish we had an official outfit for him, but there's nothing yet. I will say, being his first time on set, fighting off a classic Who villain is kind of also an interesting tidbit of info to kind of take with all that being crammed down, though, too. He's literally taking on a first Doctor villain, and that's not something that everyone can say every day either. There's a couple of popular ones like the Daleks and Cybermen, but taking on something as ambiguously remembered as the Toymaker is something that you don't get to do every day. Heck, it's something you don't even get to do every regeneration. So far, I think it feels like it's going in a good direction, but again, there's some rough edges to his coming about, so we'll have to see how they take things from here. But otherwise, it seems like for just focusing on the new Doctor, he seems to be a good first step.
All right, so yes, I agree with a lot of what was said. So we came from David Tennant, who was kind of, I mean, obviously this is not the 10th Doctor, but in many ways the show treats him as the 10th Doctor, who was this, one of, arguably the most, just because of who the actor is, considered the man pain Doctor. The whole, I'm constantly have the sorrowful look, and I'm always thinking about the past and trying to avoid it and run from it. And we've really had that's been the identity of the Doctor since the start of the RTD era, right? Because you started with the Time War, and then everything else has just been trauma on top of trauma. Whereas classic Who wasn't really like that. There were traumas, but it was never the Doctor's main identity, the way that it's so much been since the Time War. So in that way, considering that they're looking at this almost as a third show, is kind of fitting that they're kind of saying, okay, we're going to step on from that. We're going to have this Doctor who is healed from it, who's finally going to, not be dwelling on all of his traumas all the time. And that is a potentially a very good start. I think they've made it clear that that we're not just going to say, oh yeah, we're going to forget about Flux and we're going to forget about this and that. I mean, they brought up how many companions that have died in this, just by talking about this episode. Although, as a side note, didn't the Doctor spend 1,000 years on the Christmas planet? Are you going to say he never stopped and
Yeah, I saw a meme about that.
Or was he at war the whole time he was on that planet? Maybe
he was constantly fighting off the big bads in space most of the time he was there.
So maybe that's the excuse, yeah.
It's not like he had a calm day every single day.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I'm like, he stopped, but then it became people approaching him. So, okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah. And he was stuck in the, for like 1 billion years or whatever.
Oh,
but he only experienced...
In heaven.
He only experienced... Yeah, but he kept dying, so he only really experienced 1 day of that.
Right.
Experienced 1 day of it as he continued to trauma his way through.
But yeah, so what we see, we see a little bit of a queer Doctor here, right? Like he calls the other Doctor honey, things like that. So it's going to be fun to see like what they do with this Doctor. I think we'll definitely next time we're going to return to his personality because we haven't had a time to really look a lot at his personality yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll see what the next episode's like. Yeah, for that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's definitely they definitely focused on contrasting him with Tennant and making him look different here, and I think they were successful at that. All right, so with that, it is time to start our regular review. Starting with what we liked about the episode, Alex.
I guess I liked there's like this interpretation of the Toymaker. Like, I will admit, I still haven't seen even the Telesnaps version of the original story, the Celestial Toymaker. Like, I think I tried watching it once, but either I just found it too boring or whatever that I just could not. Or maybe it was just that I was so like most of the episodes are missing. So it was like,
to be fair, there's obviously a lot of visual things and visual gags going on because it is supposed to be television. So there's a lot of stuff lost in interpretation that they have to bring in with an animation.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I don't think we discussed when the new one's coming out. Was there even a release date?
I don't think so. I think they've just said that it's the next one.
They've just finally officially stated that it's actually coming instead of just having the unofficial leaks.
Amazon UK has it for mid-January. We'll see when it comes out in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
It does. Rating to be announced. But yeah, so I don't even know if that's a real date or not.
Yeah, they might just be using that as a placeholder.
But eventually, when it comes out, I'm sure we'll be reviewing.
But yeah, like I guess to a point that was discussed earlier, from what I can tell, Russell has said that either Russell or someone else in a behind the scenes thing has said that the varying over the top accents were kind of like playing up the fact that this character was a racist caricature, but not using accents that would be deemed racist to use, which is why he starts as an over the top German Toymaker, and then does like the French accent and stuff, and then the British accent and such, which isn't as over the top, but it's there. So
it was an intentional decision to nod to that, is why he makes racist remarks in literally his first scene.
Honestly, I think that must have gone over my head.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what you mean by that, because I must have missed that too.
He makes the comment by looking at Charles's skin. He's like, "Oh, you must be used to sunnier places."
Ah.
Oh.
And that's why Charles then gets a pissed off look at his face and says where he's from, which he doesn't have a Wikipedia, a TARDIS article for me to click on and see where he said. But he's from England, and the Toymaker was basically like, "Oh, you must be from, I don't know, India or something."
Which, in its own way, that might have also been intentional to play up the fact that this character was a racist caricature by having him be like spout bigoted stuff like.
Well, him bringing up sunnier places, I just thought he didn't understand the UK. Period. He's not from this universe. But yeah, I suppose there's some more to that than I initially read into it, or at least more than I heard. Must have missed some of that. Anywho.
So that was in the middle of. Was that the middle of what Alex likes? Or at the end?
I think that was basically the end of mine. I don't think I had anything else. So Matt now.
So yeah, it'll go to me for overall favorite thing.
Yep.
I like what they've done with the stuff that the Toymaker can do now. because as far as I can recall, it was just literally game after game after game, and some of them very kind of questionable games in the original one. Like basically just sit on a throne and don't die. As I recall being one of the air quotes games in the original story. It definitely seems much more of a pocket dimension with lots of weird, crazy things going on, and it does tie into some of the other things that went on in the normal universe. And also, you're never quite sure how much to take as fact or the Toymaker messing with you. Like, I'm still not sure how to take that tooth thing. Although they did seem to hint that it might have been a legit thing, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Actually, do we want to go into that too?
The one part of the Toymaker that stayed behind was the tooth that was supposed to be the master.
And then at the very end, we see another hand reach out and grab the tooth, and you hear maniacal laughter again. So, as usual, even if the master was supposedly killed, he's not really dead yet. Always a backup.
The same backup that he used last time the master was killed, actually.
Just about.
Feminine hand with red nails grabbing the thing. It was the same thing that happened last time the master was killed.
Always a backup plan. Always a plan B. Someone's gonna do some sort of silly thing and resurrect him like he's bloody freaking Count Dracula. But yeah, they definitely seem to play more into the the proper mindset and rules of being able to warp and control his own dimension, and mess with people, and then bring them into a game when he wants them to be ready for a game.
Generally, like, took advantage of the fact that they actually have a budget now.
Yes.
whereas 60s Doctor Who would have been a matter of, well, we might.
How do we portray this thing, but not like completely break the bank?
Yeah.
Right, I don't think they really delved deep into the multiple dimensional things like that until like certain books in the 60s and 70s, and even then it was still a budding thing. Then became a more regular thing until like almost the 80s. Anywho.
Okay.
Bill.
So both of your of your overall things were about the Toymaker, so I'll try to just avoid him. And I think I'll just say unit as a setting. So it's a combination, right? You have these sets that we know are going to be used for the next few seasons. But even more than that, you have the characters. It feels a lot more fleshed out than when you had. It's kind of comparable to the Third Doctor, right? Because you had the Brigadier, you had Mike, you had Liz, you had Benton. Here you have Kate, you have Shirley, you have Mel. I don't know. I don't. It would be wild if Mel is a permanent unit character from now on. Or Donna. Imagine if every time we had unit, we had Mel and Donna. That might be a little too much, to be honest. But
be interesting.
As it is
bring
here,
them out once in a while.
Yeah, right. And Kate seems to be trying to poach pretty much everyone who's ever worked with the Doctor. So it's an easy way to just bring back, like,
to be fair, the Doctor only ever works with the best.
Every unit episode, yeah.
If they manage to get out of there.
Like, we could have the next unit episode could be like, oh yeah, we brought back Martha, and then the next unit episode is we brought back Yaz. Like,
yeah.
Just
like, I mean,
random.
It's not even like, the funny thing is that's something that Chibnall effectively handed him as a setup anyway, because I'm pretty sure Kate was present at that meetup at the end of Power of the Doctor with all the companions. So if she was, then that could be a very easy explanation of she went there, met with them, and whoever was willing to work for unit.
Either way, Power of the Doctor was the one where we established that Kate was working with past companions. So
yeah.
This is kind of a continuation of that. So I mean, I look so the way that they were doing that, but also the fact that like Bonnie Langford couldn't stop like every time I turned around and saw something of her speaking, it was about the fact that Mel actually gets to use a computer when she was
Yeah.
supposed to be a computer programmer in the 80s, but she never went anywhere near a computer. She's actually somebody who works with computers now. Uh, so the fact that they managed to integrate that sort of thing into the unit existence, and the fact that the unit seems to be functioning as I don't know, Shield ever out in public. It's a cross between Shield and the Avengers.
Right. Effectively, like
They've already taken Tony's tower.
Yeah. I mean, effectively, it's basically like higher budget Third Doctor era unit in that it's the main source of that because we've gotten rid of.
Since we're bringing up Third Doctor unit, he's like, your father worked tirelessly to keep unit secret. Maybe off screen he did. On screen, on screen was another story. They didn't do a very good. Like there was a big sign in front of it saying unit headquarters. Like they would just show up and be like, "This is now unit jurisdiction," and everyone would be like, "Oh yeah, we know who that is."
I was gonna say that's the funny thing, isn't it? More like what they get up to is secretive rather than the fact that they exist is supposed to be secretive.
Kind of. Like Torchwood, I guess. Like everyone knows that Torchwood. Everyone knows exactly where Torchwood HQ is, but nobody knows exactly what they do.
Yeah, like I think that was always more so supposed to be the point, because like he would always say that he was unit, he just wouldn't say what unit was or what they were doing. Like I think even in like the first Pertwee story, like they're trying to interview him about something and he won't say anything or something like that because he can't. But yeah, I mean, I will say like if they bring anyone back, it would be fun if they brought back like, and this has only really occurred to me because of the podcast that they do now. Is like someone brought up Brigadier Brambera from Battlefield.
Yeah. She could still make an appearance somehow, somewhere.
Because they were very vague about the time that she was supposed to be from, but I always assumed it was just supposed to be like 10 years or something.
So somewhere like mid-80s to mid-90s.
Yeah, is I think where that was supposed to be. Because it was supposed to be like vaguely in the future, but not very distant. Not like distant.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so like every unit story ever?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Like, I think the writer explicitly said that, like, they were writing it as if it was in, like, either the 90s or early 2000s.
So TARDIS says it was set in 1997.
Ah, there you go.
I don't know if they
don't say it in the story itself, but yeah. It might just be a word of God thing.
It might be from the novelization.
Yeah.
Possible, yeah.
All right, so now we move on to what we disliked about the episode, starting again with Matt.
I thought it was Alex.
Oh, sorry. I'm distracted because my keyboard just started blinking low battery, so I was looking for my old school
lights still blinking.
My old school USB cord. Yes, it is Alex. You've corrected me.
We've got rid of some of the stuff to talk about, so instead I'm just going to complain about the fact that this just feels like the whole, and I feel like this is an issue with all three more than just this, but this kind of emphasizes it more. It just feels like David Tennant worship. Like, I like the 10th Doctor. I have like soured on a lot of how the 10th Doctor was portrayed, but none of it is ever Tennant himself's fault. It's always Russell.
Mm.
Russell's writing of what he would get people to write, like, but this just feels so much like it's just like he's the only one that, like, certain decisions being made are like, well, it's Tennant, he's my favorite, blah 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 blah, and it's like the amount of doctors that certain things in this could have worked for more than Tennant is just like, yeah, it feels very the whole. I hate the whole thing that some people are leaning into of like the whole, oh, it's having a cake, like the Bigeneration being very, oh, it's like having a cake and eating it too. It's like, yeah, but did we need to though? Like, I've seen, like, I think the most valid thing I've seen is saying that that was like a survivor of trauma being able to see the person they become when they're able to overcome that trauma. And it's like, that's a valid take, but also, did we really need that whole thing? And also, again, this is very just, I just don't like that these specials have just felt very, and even with the Celestial Toymaker in this, and Mel, and like the Star Beast being an adaptation of a comic book story from the friggin' 80s, it just still feels too New Who centric. And I'm like, for God's sake, give me something that feels classic. For as much shit as Chibnall gets, the Power of the Doctor still feels, now that we've seen all three, I can definitively say that Power of the Doctor feels like more of a 60th anniversary special than any of these three did.
I'd say
a hill I'm willing to
individually,
die on.
yes, but taken together, I feel like, and this, I'm glad you brought that up, because this is I think I meant to ask about that by the end of the podcast, but I never remembered to put it on the agenda. But I do kind of feel like, so in the first episode, we had a reference to the Fourth Doctor comics from the 80s, and of course references to the David Tennant era. In the second episode, we have references to the Chibnall era, and we have arguably, maybe sort of, a reference to the Sayward era with the no screwdriver. And then in this episode, we have references to, of course, the entire Stephen Moffat era. We have references to Adric, the Toymaker, the Gods of Ragnarok, Mavic Chen for some fucking reason. I guess you could kind of say Unit HQ is a 70s reference.
Unit HQ being more or less a 70s reference, but also at the same time the main villain being a 60s reference.
Yeah. So, like, I feel like, yes, they reference modern Who more than classic Who, but I do feel like they went out of their way to acknowledge the entire history of the show.
At moments. But also, I would argue that little moments like that are the exception, not the rule.
I do.
So it's nice to have callbacks, but it's another thing to actually use those callbacks. And they didn't seem to really use them.
Well, they used the Toymaker, but I mean,
that's about it.
I think
even that's a loose use.
He mentioned in one of the behind the scenes things, right? It's like the story has to take priority, and if you overburden the story, it's just going to be a shitty episode. Which is why, like, there weren't like, oh, why weren't Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, and Jodie Whittaker in Wild Blue Yonder? Because it would have been a worse story.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, for me, it's a matter of both the 50th and this both feel very, let's celebrate new at the expense of classic. Because, like, yes, both have had classic villains involved or this or that, but it still felt the story of this was basically the 10th Doctor getting closure. more than anything. That was the story of it. It didn't feel like a very classic Who feeling trilogy, which, you know, it didn't have to be entirely, but it did not, again, in the way that Power of the Doctor felt like a celebration of classic while also looking to the future.
Although, was it a celebration of 100 years of the BBC or only of 60 years of Doctor Who?
Yeah. But again, it's like, it's what I find, like I said it at the time that I thought it was probably going to be more of a 60th than the 60th. And I feel like I've been proven right, at least in my own mind, because again, it just feels like it just feels like this is very New Who centric when they could have just waited to pull that kind of shit. Which I'll be interesting to see what they do in 2025, because Russell will still be around by then, I assume. So, if they're going to do kind of a 20 years of New Who thing.
I agree. If they do a 20 years of Modern Who special, I'll agree that this is too much. If this is the only special they're doing for the next 10 years, then I would say it's probably fine. I agree that they did lean more on Modern Who than Classic. And I think they're probably looking at it like more of our current audience remembers the Tennant era than remembers the Tom Baker era, for instance.
Right.
But I think I forget if I've said it on air or not, but I've definitely been saying I feel like the 70s got the shaft in this trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just going to say that the existence of the unit base as a setting is the only 70s reference, then very clearly that's a lack of 70s references.
Right. Which I guess, in a way, neglecting the 70s somewhat, you could maybe excuse that by virtue of the fact of the 50th having the, was it the 50th?
The Zygons?
That had the Zygons, yeah. Which was the 70s villain that had only appeared once prior. Which I guess seems to be the trend. So I guess whoever the 70th villain is will probably be another returning villain from the past that had previously only shown up the once.
Maybe the Master of Fiction.
But yeah, it's just you know, it's personal bias, but it just feels.
Speaking of returning things, were we to understand that the Black and White Guardians are currently voodoo dolls?
I don't know. I wasn't quite sure what that.
He said Masters of Space and Time.
Yeah.
Like Guardians of the Universe or something.
Could have been Guardians,
he said Guardians of Time and Space, I think, or Space and Time, which
as far as I'm concerned, it could be Time Lords. Because Time Lords are supposed to be that.
But I mean, Doctor Who canon, for what it's for the extent that it exists, I should say Doctor Who continuity has been very iffy on like what Guardians of Time and Space would mean. Some stories would be like, oh yeah, the Guardian of Time would be Rassilon, and some is like, no, it's the Black and White Guardians, and so on and so forth. Also, because it's not big enough to be a favorite scene, the fact that the Doctor is like order, chaos, and play kind of ties into that whole theory of like the Celestial or the Toymaker being like another Guardian on par with the Black and White Guardians. Where did we start off before?
I believe you went on the ramble before I could get started.
Yeah.
I believe Alex was already kind of going, I think I'm good.
Yeah. I think that was a battle I had without rambling.
So my major problem, actually, as much as I like the ideas that they're using with the Toymaker, I don't get the motive.
Yeah.
And when the Doctor explained his motive, it seemed like it was generally really good. And then the Toymaker just goes, "Nah, I'm changing my motive just because F Earth." What kind of motive is that?
They're like, I would have assumed that the idea was the Toymaker was specifically targeting the Doctor, but at no point is it ever stated that that's why he's doing what he's doing.
Right.
You know, it should be why he's doing it and why he's doing it, but they completely avoid ever saying that for sure and just goes, "Nah, I just like messing with things, and I'm gonna just mess with Earth because they're so great at being messed with."
Yeah, he's like, Earth is a fun place.
Which, dude, you one planet in a universe full of other human-like and much more alien-like beings who could just be as easily manipulated. And he was also giving you a chance to like break away from the trend and do something better with your time. But nah, let's just sit here and be evil to one planet because I feel like it today.
Yeah,
that's the most like generic BS motive I've ever heard.
Yeah, like if it had specifically been stated, no, I like messing with this planet because it pisses you off.
If he would have done something, if he would have done something more along the lines of, "No, Doctor, this is our game, and the reason why this is your precious little Earth is being targeted by me is because we have yet to finish our game. So are we going to finish it, or do I get to continue to play with them?" That's much more of a decent, proper motivation, especially a bigger motivation to get the Doctor involved.
Yeah.
Because every time something happens and it's the Doctor's name stapled on it, he feels it.
Yeah.
Especially following up off the Flux references, right? He was because of me, it's not your fault. I know that, and so forth.
Yeah, it would have been the perfect motivation and the perfect way to get the Doctor rolling on it. But nah. We have a good, decent villain with some interesting stuff going on, and then we're just given the most hand-wavy explanations as to why they're doing what they're doing.
When there was an easy hand wave of just revenge on the Doctor.
There's the easiest hand wave of all, revenge, because he's been in prison for how long in his own universe because the Doctor won. How dare you?
That's right, because they were playing for the TARDIS, weren't they? All right, on to me then?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to say I kind of disliked how simple the actual games for high stakes were. And I get, like, they had to fit all these things into the episode, and that's why. It's like, game 1, cut the deck. Okay. Oh, no, sorry. Game 1, which I guess they decided to call a draw because nobody won that one. Hide and seek. Then cut the deck. And then catch. And it's... I understand, like, and they don't say this. I think that's because he knows that he knows his and actually I kind of wish he did say it. He knows that the more complicated the game is, the more likely the more strategy involved, the more likely the Doctor is going to win, right? That's, he's a strategy guy. Whereas if it's almost chance or completely chance, then the Doctor is more likely to lose. But it feels kind of a downgrade. Not even looking at the first episode, like of the Toymaker, but looking at all of the shit he does in this episode, the flowers, the turning people into balls, the puppets, everything he does. The games are by far the least interesting part. And that's the problem. Like if his whole thing is the games should be similarly interesting, or at least almost as interesting as the other things he does. Instead, he does a ton of interesting shit and super boring games.
Yeah.
Next time, Doctor, we're playing Magic the Gathering. It's going to take 2 hours to play.
I mean, I guess to that point,
the Doctor makes a fucking counterspell deck.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to that point where you're almost kind of expecting, like, even though it's still fairly simplistic, almost like a Riddles on the Dark scenario or something.
Riddles would be cool. All right, favorite scenes.
What have I got in my pocket? Yep, Alex. Favorite scene.
Ooh, let's see.
For a second, I thought there was a scene about finding something in his pocket, and I was like, "Wait, which scene was that?"
You know what? I'm gonna go with the puppet show. And specifically go with
the one about the Moffat era.
Yeah. Oh. Because that felt very pointed, like even Russell being aware of, yeah, that was silly, wasn't it? As far as like, they're dead, but not really. And the Doctor trying to be like, and the Doctor being very, oh, well, but they're not actually dead. And the Toymaker basically throwing it back in his face. It's very
that's right. The first time I watched it, I was like, oh, it's a roast of the Moffat era.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, that kind of stuff had technically happened under RTD before, but it was always more of a Moffat thing, but it is something that RTD went along with. And I mean, to be fair, companions being forced off the TARDIS generally was also something that RTD was fond of. Like,
there's Rose Piper, and I mean, wait, no,
Rose Piper.
Rose Tyler. Yeah, Rose Tyler, who died at Canary Wharf. No, she's still alive in another universe. Well, that's all right then.
Yeah, and like the Donna just getting a memory wiped and all this and this and that, and it's just like, it was nice as someone who fucking was sick of that shit by the time Chibnall took over, and it's why I still give Chibnall a lot of praise for allowing all of his companions to just leave. Instead of being forced off. I mean, like, Yaz gets nudged off, I guess, but that's almost kind of Sarah Jane, I can't take you with me kind of a thing to a point. But yeah, it was nice to have that, like, address on screen, whereas which I honestly would not have expected that from Russell. So that was a nice scene to have. And yeah, that's all I've got for that, I think.
Like, my favorite scene was Russell throwing shade at his friend.
Air quotes, friend.
Matt.
I'm trying to think. Just one favorite scene. Honestly, yeah, I'm still gonna go with that because it's dark, but it's also at the same time amusing. Just all of a sudden, you hear the doorbell ringing, like it sounds like a door chime to a shop, and then they finally look outside to see the Toymaker. And they're immediately, the first question out of anyone's mouth is, where are the guards at? Where'd they all go? Last I checked, they're still falling. Literally a second later, you hear the crashes. It's like, oh, that's what he meant. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Well, Russell's not pulling back on the body count this episode, apparently. That's like at least 5 people dead.
True. This is not a justice once everybody lives scenario.
Or Sound of Drums, where everything, Last of the Time Lords, where it all gets undone at the end of it.
Right.
And the only real casualty is the Master.
Even then, the Master survives that episode.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, it's like, oh, well, that's kind of almost Joker-y-ish. Just like, I'm having whimsical fun murdering people. Huzzah! Did you see all those friends of yours that just turned into balls? Yeah, they're dead now. Hello.
They're dead, Jim. Although they might just be conscious balls forever.
No, I think like immediately after the doctor says that they're dead.
The doctor says they're dead, yeah.
Yeah.
So for mine, speaking of murder, I am going to go with Donna and Stooky Sue.
Oh.
First thing, all the way, and I realized on the second watch, the first thing out of her mouth, if this is a trick, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And then we have the creepiest sequence in the entire episode, which is wonderfully done, with the babies descending on her and trying to bite her. And then it ends with her smacking the shit out of the puppet, knocking its head off, and being like, "Do you have anything to add, babies?"
Babbies, and they back off. That's what I thought. Kicks the mom's head across the room and walks out of the room.
Donna's looking at them like,
exterminate.
Well, let's face facts. Donna don't take no shit.
The Donna-ness of it. Yeah.
Donna's not one to take anyone's BS.
Yep. Least favorite scenes.
Ooh. It's interesting because some I'm like, this is an iffy line, but is that enough to make this scene go? You know what? God, I feel like I had another one. You know what? Why not? It's such a weird line, at least to me. Like I've seen other people be a bit about it, but do you come in a variety of colors line is a bit odd.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what she was getting at with that. If she was like, if it was a fetish thing or
like, it's one of those things where like I get what, like, it's such an odd way to address that. Hey, it's finally a black man playing the role. But like, I feel like you could have worded it differently.
Yeah.
And honestly, I probably would have just left it to the doctor to address, rather than. I mean, it's weird enough. You could argue that the first black male doctor is in his underwear for his entire first appearance. Which could be, they never sexualize it, but you could.
Right, I don't think they even bring it up.
Into it. Yeah, they don't bring it up.
They definitely try not to bring it up.
Yeah, so they're at least not like sexualizing him through that, but it's still like, you know, I would not begrudge people to be like, that's a bit awkward. But yeah, just that actually, line.
Yeah. In the context, it almost seems like, the doctor needs to get rid of all of his survivor's guilt before he can be black. Which, I mean, I don't know if there's any logic in that reading, but it kind of...
Yeah.
Just start playing the song Painted Black, I guess. I don't know. No less awkward than the rest of the stuff going on here.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I feel like they could have got the sentiment across without that kind of a line. It just seemed a bit awkward, which seems to be the case for RTD thus far.
He seems to have a constant problem kicking the awkward ball around.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it for me on
Okay.
that.
Matt?
Least favorite scene. I will go. Yeah, this is where everything kind of heel turned for me for the episode pretty hard. Is like I'm still waiting for this episode to give me reasons for why certain things have been happening for the last couple of episodes, which they should have and never did. And then they shot the Doctor with a laser, and then all of a sudden he stops regenerating, mid-regeneration, then just says, pull my arms. I'm like, what? Pulls arms, and suddenly they're like, yeah, literally splitting him in half. And I'm like, and we're jumping the shark, ladies and gentlemen. We're jumping the shark real hard, and I'm just completely taken out of this. What's going on? Give me some reasons, otherwise I'm calling BS, and all the reasons were BS. So it pretty much just kind of it not only ruined this episode, it ruined the last couple of episodes where I was waiting for reasons. David Tennant's still sitting in the corner going, what? How? Why? Me? Why am I back again? I don't know. How? What? Why? Yeah, just I wanted at least some sort of explanation, and instead I get my doctor shot in half somehow thing, and it just makes more questions than I got any kind of answers to. Made an interesting Doctor so far, but yeah, just meh. Yep, Bill.
All right, so that's on to me then, and I'm just going to say, regardless of whether it had a reason, I think we're going to check another box in the potentially well-intentioned but definitely awkward and uncomfortable scenes, and that is the whole Sunnier Climbs scene. Maybe it was to call attention to the fact that the Toymaker was created as a racist caricature. Honestly, we don't need to remember that. Like, otherwise, I mean...
Can we just take the broad strokes of the character and just, like, completely drop the caricature things? But nope, apparently not.
I would be perfectly happy with the Toymaker not being racist. Yes, I mean, there's a big difference between the villain being racist and the hero being racist. So there is that. But at the same time, why do we need to start Doctor Who stories with, hey, here's real-world prejudice being thrown in your face?
Yeah.
That's the second time it's happened. Yeah. And there's only been 3 episodes.
Running with our face right to the brick wall, aren't we, Russell?
It's like sci-fi isn't necessarily pure escapism, but it doesn't add anything to the story.
Blatant as a brick wall to your head either. So
yeah, it didn't add anything to the story. Like it
did the story no favors.
When Kate was all ableist about Shirley's chair, that added to the story because it had to do with like, her her implicit negative thoughts are being brought to the surface by this by the Giggle and so forth.
Yeah, that's to be understandable because of the story what's going on. Yeah. And it wasn't just that either. It also went on to attack the Gingers and attack the Doctor for being an alien and so on. It wasn't just one thing.
That's such a British thing. I don't know what it's like in Australia, but I've never seen anti-ginger prejudice anywhere except British TV shows or other British media.
Well, I've also heard the American jokes that gingers have no souls, but yeah, that's a thing.
As a joke.
Yeah. But it's also a joke,
I've never seen it as a prejudice. Like, there's the idea, like, just like there's blondes have more fun, there's the idea that, like, redheads are more sexual or whatever. I've never seen actual prejudice against people for being redheads except in British media.
Actually, I will say...
they beat him like a redheaded stepchild is an American invention.
Okay, yes, I've seen I always thought that was just a reference to the movie Annie. But I see your point.
But also, I would say that I have heard, this is going back to some old school stuff, that apparently miners, like, ore diggers, etc., they had a prejudice against redheads. Doesn't even matter gender. they were bad luck.
Okay.
But I think that has something to do with more of like the Irish, I think, though, than the actual redheads, probably.
I mean, I know anti-Irish
it gets tied, yeah.
Yeah, and again, there's like a whole new generation of people give gingers shit because of the South Park episode, mocking them, and after that you got kick a ginger day and shit like this bullcrap.
See, and I knew of that from South Park, but I've never seen it anywhere else.
I saw that it apparently took off for like a year or two afterwards, but that immediately got crushed pretty hard. So
gotcha.
And the people behind South Park were like, yeah, that should not like legitimately be a thing. This is supposed to be satire. What the hell is wrong with you people?
Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just it struck me in the episode because it was something I've never seen in real life myself, but is apparently very common, or at least much more common in the UK. Relatively. But that got off on, I meant to just be a comment and it ended up becoming a conversation, so I don't even remember where that started from.
Trying to think, we were giving our
we were talking about we were talking about Kate Stewart and so I get so that was the end of my least favorite scene.
Yeah, okay. So, final
All
thoughts,
right.
then?
So, yes, final thoughts, starting with Alex.
Once again, like, I feel like this was better than the Star Beast. Like, the stumbling blocks in this didn't feel as, like, egregious, I guess. Or just there weren't as many, maybe. Or, like, you know, it felt like the story was better enough that it didn't drag it down a considerable amount, like it kind of felt like it did with the Star Beast. I am very wary now, leading into the start of Shooty's proper run, and like maybe this will be him getting like Russell just getting back into the swing of things of writing for Doctor Who. But to be quite honest, these 3 specials have shown me that Russell is better when he has limits, like with Wild Blue Yonder, which gave him like a limited space, no TARDIS, no Sonic, etc. Thank God the Sonic was still toned down in this very relatively. There was none of that magic wand shit this time. But, we'll see how we go, but I just... this feels like Russell has not changed much despite some of the stuff he's done since, and it really makes me hope that moving forward he's going to be more of a script editor for other people's stuff, because that was always his strength when he was showrunner anyway. But yeah,
his strength was end and start capping things, but then having other people do other stuff in the middle to make things interesting.
Yeah, like...
And for him to kind of write off their coattails to get other ideas from.
Yeah, it's like, it's not a bad episode, but I was hoping for more or better, and it's just, and a lot of the sort of fan service around David Tennant, that just didn't gel with me. So yeah, it didn't hit the way it did for a lot of other people that I've seen talk about this. That's all about I've got, I think.
Okay, Matt?
We saw earlier in this episode that a bunch of people reviewing this were giving it a high amount of praise. I have to say that I think these people are blind. Now, I will say that 2/3 of this episode was really good and I enjoyed a lot of it. But that last third, once again, for the second out of 3 times, just like, what the hell happened here, Russell? What are you doing? No, you're breaking all the rules. Why are you acting like a fanboy that got the tools? No, stop it. Make it stop.
He's always been that.
But usually he has a little more restraint than this. And it's really, really actually starting to push me to the point that I'm not sure if I want to continue. I'm still going to give this season a go, and we're going to see where we end up by the end of it. Hopefully he kind of chills on it and kind of course corrects a little bit and stops doing all this weird rule breaking stuff that's pissing me off. But I'm not holding any kind of hope in that right now because he's done it at least a couple times now, and it doesn't make any sense, even more so by the second time he did it. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's just really frustrating that it undermines what could have been a good, not only a good episode, but a good trilogy of episodes for specials. That's my thought on it.
All right. So yeah, I would say in the general, I liked this story. I definitely enjoyed the callbacks that we did get. Although, as I said, I do wish we'd gotten some 70s references at some point. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything that hasn't been brought up yet, which I think I interjected a lot during the review, so most of my thoughts have been clearing out there. The Bigeneration is a potential issue with lore, but I don't think it was a huge detriment to this story specifically. If you look at it without the context of, well, I mean, it kind of is a huge arrow at the lore. So yeah, I'm kind of mixed feelings there. Overall, the vast majority of the episode I enjoyed. I, definitely was happy to go back and watch it a second time. And I guess that'll be it. So, ratings.
I will admit, this is another instance where my thoughts on a story retroactively change my score for something else. So I will actually bump my Wild Blue Yonder one up to a 5.
And 5.0 for Wild Blue Yonder, which brings that up to a 4.67.
And I will give this a 4.5 because it's like, I like it more than the Star Beast, but not as much as Wild Blue Yonder, so it falls in the middle.
Is Matt going to be the low score for the third week in a row?
Oh, probably. Oh, I'm here to be the party pooper. This barely holds on to the same rating as Star Beast. This is a mediocre story. It was so good, and then it just literally kicked itself in the shin and then smacked itself with a demonic possessed hand several times after it was already knocked out on the ground. Hello, Evil Dead 2.
3.0?
So yeah, 3.0, just barely holding on to it.
So I'm with Alex. I give this a 4.5, which makes the average for the episode a 4.0. Comparing it to the other specials, that's Wild Blue Yonder as the best with a 4.67. The Giggle at number 2 with a 4.0. And the Star Beast last with a 3.67. Since we were comparing it to Power of the Doctor, let me pop to that real quick. Power of the Doctor was a 4.38, so in between Wild Blue Yonder and the Giggle. But if we look at our rankings, a 4.0, I'm pretty sure 4.0 is one of our more common ratings.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So it puts it at number 227 out of 457 things reviewed. And it is on par with Spyfall, Rose, Planet of the Spiders, Castrovalva, The Invisible Enemy, Terminus, Heaven Sent, Vengeance on Varos, The Runaway Bride, Attack of the Cybermen, which... Why is there a typo? A Good Man Goes to War, The Aztecs, The Censorites, Carnival of Monsters, and like 10 more stories. It is not as good as The Space Museum, Can You Hear Me, It Takes You Away, Closing Time, The Girl Who Died, Fires of Pompeii, Death to the Daleks, State of Decay, Under the Lake Before the Flood, or Mummy on the Orient Express. And it is better than Knock Knock, The Deadly Assassin, The Brain of Morbius, Colony in Space, Warrior's Gate, Into the Dalek, Kerblam, Midnight, The Monster of Peladon, Blink, The Next Doctor, and The Chase. All right. So that is all we have to say about the Giggle. Since you've watched it, let us know in the comments what you thought of this story. Don't forget to like the video if you've listened this far. Subscribe on YouTube to get our exports each stream, or follow us on Twitch to get notified when we stream. Next time, we take a week off of new episodes to go back to the Ninth Doctor Adventures with The Curse of Lady Macbeth, written by Lizzie Hopley and starring Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor. Or should I have said The Curse of Lady the Scottish Play?